Hello everybody, and welcome back on Safari Live to our sunset drive. It's a beautiful day. We've just worked out it's 20 degrees Celsius, which is about 67 degrees Fahrenheit, so a lovely warm winter's day for us here. And we are currently on our way to a waterhole. Because it's so warm, often you may find some animals coming down to drink during the day, so we're taking out a chance and heading down there, see if we can find anything. Those of you who were with us this morning, and after we found that leopard, we did try and look around that area, but we had no luck. So my colleague Scott is actually tracking through the drainage line. He's busy walking there. He's a lot braver than I am, but he's going to be looking around, seeing if he gets any tracks, and if he does come up with anything, he'll let us know. And for those first-time viewers, welcome. Great to have you with us. And just a reminder that if you have any questions or any comments, please just tweet us if you are on Twitter at with hashtag Safari Live. Otherwise, email us with questions at wildearth.tv. And thank you to everyone who commented this morning via Twitter and through the emails that we received. It was really great to hear all your feedback, and for everyone welcoming me. And let's hope our luck continues from this morning. So we're going to drive on a little bit and see what we can find. We have James on Jiga this afternoon, and those of you who were with us this morning, as I mentioned, James and I actually go quite far back. James trained me as a guide, so it's great to be driving around this area with him, and we'll see what the two of us can find for you this afternoon. Oh, we've got some buffalo at this waterhole, just as I suspected. Some animals did come down for the day. I'm going to try reposition us so I'm not looking directly into the sun. Second, there we go. Two big old buffalo bulls, occasionally known as Dugger boys. I'm not sure if any of you have heard that term before, Dugger boys. It's the word Dugger comes from a Zulu word, umdaga, which means mud, and mud or cement. What Zulus would do, or traditional tribes, is they would mix mud with a bit of sand or stone, and they'll often use that to build their walls of their houses. But how the Dugger boys got their name is because they constantly wallow of their houses. How the Dugger boys got their name is because they constantly wallow in the mud, or they do enjoy wallowing in the mud. It's a way for them to cool down and get rid of ticks and fleas. So they love the mud, and I think that's how they got the name Dugger boys. Notice that really on both of these buffalo, really big thick horn structure, especially in the middle of the head, and that's known as the boss. and the boss is used for protection. One, if any predators do try and attack them, they'll use their horns to protect themselves. But also with males, it's a lot thicker, because when they do fight for dominance, when they're looking to mate with females, they'll often use those horns and that thick boss to fight each other off and try and win the females over. There's an old story that a buffalo bull manages to look at you as if you owe him money, which I think is quite funny. But look at that stare that he's got. Can hear a lot of oxpeckers on the buffalo, and I can see them flying around. Whenever you're walking through the bush, it doesn't matter where you are, but an oxpecker is a wonderful, wonderful bird to listen out for, because they'll always alert you whether there are animals around. It doesn't necessarily mean buffalo. It could mean any antelope species, giraffe, but rhino and buffalo especially. So you'd know if you hear oxpeckers, you always have to be very vigilant and very aware of what's going on around you, because chances are you're going to see something. And again, it just shows, when you are in the wild, in the bush, you don't just rely on your eyesight. We need to try use our other senses too, our smell, our hearing, and that's how a lot of the time we find these animals, just by picking up little clues in the bush. I saw there were quite a few comments this morning and questions regarding myself and where I came from and how I landed up here. Well, as I mentioned a bit earlier, I've been in this industry for about 10 years, and then guided in the Sabi Sands at a lodge for about 6 years, just south of Djuma, and that's where I met James. and after that, I have since moved on to other ventures, traveling through southern Africa, guiding throughout Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and most parts of South Africa, traveling with guests as a private guide. It's wonderful to show guests what Africa has to offer, and it's really fantastic that I'm able to see different areas. But when I heard of Safari Live, it was obviously something which caught my eye, and I think it's such a wonderful, wonderful concept to be able to experience these safaris and these animals, and show everyone around the world what we have. It's really very, very special. Just Andrew focusing on some weaver nests above the waterhole there. Andrew's on camera with me this afternoon. It's always great to have him around. We drove together this morning, helped me out quite a bit getting to know this area. And as I mentioned, James on the other vehicle, and he's with Phil this afternoon. And then Nikki and Eugene in the FC. Always great to have them supporting us from there. Those nests that are above the waterhole, which Andrew focused on, those are the village weavers, and they're incredible builders. The reason I know that village weavers' nests, most of the weaver nests are quite similar, but the thing is that each weaver has a certain way of building a nest. They might have slightly longer tunnels as entrances, but also what the village weavers do is they always build their nests above water like this. So you'll get a community living or nesting in the same tree and always above water. So it's quite interesting to see them all around here. I don't see any weavers around at the moment. Perhaps are off looking for food. Maybe later this afternoon they'll return if there are any in the nest at the moment. And hello and good afternoon to Raisa, who's one of our regular viewers, and she wants to know which leopard we saw this morning at the hyena den. Raisa, we think it's possibly Tanguna, which is the male leopard, the dominant male leopard from Arethusa, who's been pushing in slightly, trying to take Mvula's territory in this Juma area. So we think possibly it was him. We did get a quick view of him, but he was a little nervous, a little skittish because he bumped into the hyena. I don't think he thought the hyena was there or knew that the hyena was there until he came around a bush and saw him. So that's possibly why I was a little nervous. The hyena did chase him off, and also because Tanguna is now coming into a new territory. He's challenging the dominant leopard around here, so he's going to be a bit nervous. He's going to be looking around, you know, constantly watching his back. He wants to assess the area. He doesn't want to make a mistake and bump into another big male leopard. They don't like confrontation too much, so he's going to be very wary of what's going on around him. Oh, look, and another animal's come down to drink. Beautiful warthog. I sometimes laugh. Guests always ask me if you can use beautiful and warthog in the same sentence. I definitely think so. I think they're fascinating animals, and they've got such character. Really great. So this is fantastic, and I always say, as a guide, it's wonderful if you try to predict something. And I mean, we do get, I wouldn't say used to animal behavior, but you tend to read it as best as you can because you've viewed it for many years, and you kind of notice general movements. But again, you can never predict too much. But it's always great when you think something's going to happen and you arrive at a waterhole and there are animals down here drinking. And just as I said, it's quite a warm day, 20 degrees Celsius, about 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So especially in this dry time, you know, the animals do need water. That's exactly what this warthog is doing now, getting a good drink of water. They also really enjoy wallowing in the mud. I'm sure some of you are interested to see what James is up to, and knowing James, I'm sure he's got something interesting to show you. So that warthog's just moving off now. I think we're going to leave these buffalo. They've settled down again. Why don't you go through, see what James is up to, and we'll see you a little later, hopefully with something interesting.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Jigga. We are deep in the western hemispheres of Arathusa at the moment. I hope you've had a good day on safari with our colleagues. My old friend Byron, I believe, has been doing a sterling job, and he was effusive in his praise of the warmth with which he was greeted by all of you, so thank you for that. As you know, I trained him in his initial stages, so any bad habits he may have picked up were subsequent to any training that I gave him, of course. Haha. We are here trying to find some lions. The tracks were found in this area this morning, but they seem, I don't think that it's the same lions that Scott was following this morning, and so we've sort of picked up where Scott left off, and we're going to see if we can find them. Up in the tree there, you saw some white-backed vultures, the most common vulture in this area, and they seem to be on a nest. I think they breed pretty much all year round, so I can't see any chicks in that one, so perhaps the hen is sitting on the eggs, and they will be born shortly. Often people think when you see a vulture like that there must be some sort of dead animal or carcass or rotting piece of flesh in the bush nearby, but often this isn't the case. I mean, obviously in this case they're in a nest, and often in the middle of the morning what happens is, as the heat starts, it happened at about 10 o'clock today that I noticed it, then the vultures will start to fly because the thermals start to rise off the earth, and it's very difficult for them to fly without the thermals because they have very heavy bodies. They're designed to glide on the rising air currents. They're not designed to flap around like a crowned eagle, for example, which is about the same size, but is designed to flit through the branches and chasing monkeys and that sort of thing. So vultures on a day like today, it's very cold, by the way. I'm not sure if Byron told you. I'm going to guess at roughly 18 to 20 degrees centigrade with a very chilly wind blowing. And so on days like today, you'll find that vultures do spend a lot of time sitting in the trees and not doing a great deal of flying. They can go many days, obviously, without eating. So we're going to head along this drainage line, see what form of a lion we can find, and perhaps we will see some other interesting things. Well, I'm sure we will. Well, I'll find them interesting, and I'm going to try and infuse you with them too. Remember, we love to hear from you. Any questions or comments you have, hashtag Safari Live, or questions at WildEarth TV if you're on email. Unfortunately, the South African Postal Service is still on strike, so should you wish to send us a letter by snail mail, it will arrive in the year 2019, I would estimate. I'm just going to show you this bush. Now, Phil, can you just shine off on the bush? Oh, I've got Phil with me, by the way. Highly important part of the game drive, of course. Without Phil, we don't see anything. So over here, I'm sure you've heard many of the presenters talking about the potato bush, or Phyllanthus reticulatus. There is nothing to do with potatoes about this bush, except that it smells like potatoes come the evening. Right now, it smells like nothing. But as soon as the sun goes down, it starts to smell like potatoes. And so you drive through here, and it smells a little bit like a McDonald's drive-through, which is a little disconcerting when you're in the wilderness. But it's pollinated by a nocturnal moth that is obviously attracted by that smell. Perhaps the pheromones of the moth smell a little bit like a McDonald's chip factory. But very seldom seen. It's a very scraggly little bush, and often people can't find it. But that's what this is. Phyllanthus reticulatus, the potato bush. Plug myself in, and on we go. So we're in an old riverbed, and like I said the other day, amazed me how many of these dry riverbeds there are. And it's always made me think that this place must have at one stage been a lot wetter than it is. And indeed it used to, in prehistory, it used to be an inland sea. And I think that's half the reason that the soils here are so sort of nutrient deficient. Very poor area for agriculture. And in fact, that's why it was given over to wildlife eventually. So we're still on the tracks of the lions. I'm not sure, I know Scott didn't find them today because they'd crossed north. We're hoping that they came south again. And I believe that they killed an impala yesterday, and that would not have fed all 7 of them for very long. I'm particularly worried about the yearling, or the year-old sub-adult, because he or she was looking pretty ropey the other day, and I doubt from an impala she would have got anything. Quite a windy day because of the front coming through, so a good day for lions to hunt. They like to hunt in the wind because it disperses their scent, and animals obviously, their prey can't smell them coming or hear them coming. We got some impala there. Now, very early this morning, I obviously wasn't on drive. I was dispatched to the so-called civilization of Hoedspruit. Civilization I use there in the loosest possible way, but I had to walk to fetch a vehicle to go in. And it was, the full moon was out. It was the most stunning scene. Before the sun had come up, there was just a bit of sort of gold on the eastern horizon, and in the west the moon had cast a sort of blue and eerie glow over the clearing through which I was walking. And I saw a male and a female impala, and for the second time only in 10 years, I saw them mating. I think it's very late for them to be doing that, and that's probably why there was only one female there. But it was the most... they hardly noticed me, or they certainly pretended not to notice me, and it was a wonderful sort of culmination of the rut that finally happened, and obviously that will then culminate in the lambing season in November. But it's such a rare occurrence to actually see. We know it happens, and it's supposed to normally happen under the cover of the darkest of the night, but at the it was fascinating to see in the light of the early sort of full dawn moon. Right, we're going to push on now. Sort of an odd temperature. When you're out of the wind, it's fairly warm, and my great jacket is causing me to perspire slightly. But when the wind, there's a nice kudu actually. Can you get a picture of him there? It's a little herd of kudu. We'll try and get a little closer. They do normally run away from us. Beautiful cow. They love these drainage line areas because they're pretty thick, and they can hide away from anything that might be coming to get them. Like I said the other day, and the Nkahuma pride is this is a good size animal for them to be hunting. kudu cow. We've had a question from, I think it's Tally or Callie, sorry, the radio is a little bit rough this afternoon with the front coming through. You wanted to know what it was that the hyena were eating around Arathusa last night. I will find out from the rangers when they come online. They're still having their afternoon tea with their guests at Arathusa Lodge, and as soon as they have finished quaffing their coffee and satiating their hunger on a delicious sponge cake, I will find out from them exactly what happened. Haven't seen many kudu bulls around since I've been here, all 10 days that I've been here, or 11 days now. And it's one of the most interesting things. Apparently, there's the rest of the herd, but they're all cows. That's quite nice. Apparently, a kudu bull will only live for about 7 years, where the females or cows potentially live for up to 14 years, and apparently that is because the kudu bull has those huge spiral horns which make it very difficult for them to actually run away from predators. So they live in very thick bush, and the horns get caught up in the branches as they try and run away, and so they seem to get smashed a lot more than kudu cows do. I'm just going to see if you can hear it. There's a woodpecker feeding off to my left. I don't think these microphones are going to be quite sensitive enough. Can you hear that? Trying to see if I can see it. So that'll be a little, probably a cardinal woodpecker from the sound, and they'll be just knocking about, seeing if what insects they can drill out of the wood. And those huge radar-like ears of that kudu cow are a fantastic way for them to hear. Ears even more important for them than it is for the likes of impala, which have much smaller ears proportionately, mainly because the kudu will be found in thick bush where sight is not quite as important as hearing. They need to be able to hear the rustle of any leaf and the footfall of a soft cat pad as it walks through the undergrowth. Possibly Africa's most beautiful antelope. I'd love to hear what your favorite antelope or herbivore is. If you could send through your answers to #SafariLive or questions@wildearth.tv. Let's get a little poll going for the most attractive antelope on the African continent. My vote's going for kudu this afternoon. Phil, what's your favorite?
Waterbuck.
Phil's going for waterbuck. So one waterbuck, one kudu. Sorry, the radios are not good. I think your question is, would a lion pride not hunt ever to the extent that they'd starve to death? Is that correct? If so, the answer is... Okay, let's carry on. Okay, I've got your question now. You want to know, probably as a result of my asking about the, or not asking, my concerns about the sub-adult and whether, looking a bit ropey. You want to know if a lion pride would ever let the sub-adult starve to death. The answer is yes. Unfortunately, they would. We tend to think of, it's quite difficult for us to understand, but we often think of lion prides as being some sort of socially cohesive and egalitarian society, which it really isn't. And if there is not enough pride or food for the adults, if the adults are not able to satiate themselves, it's not uncommon for the youngsters to eventually become so weak that they get left behind in the pride. The same cannot be said for wolves or for wild dogs, which will normally go back and feed their sick and their injured and their young. So that little lion that's not looking so good is going to have to fight for every morsel that he gets. And if he can't fight for it, chances are he will die eventually. Hi Nigel, thank you for your question. It's a good one. You want to know, do kudu horns ever stop growing? The answer is probably not. I am not entirely sure, but I do know that a kudu, for example, with 4 spirals in its horns is about 8 years old. So I mean, it's gone beyond its sort of average age, and I think they keep growing until the kudu dies. Yeah, good question. So you can quite easily age a kudu from the number of spirals there are on its horn. Right, I am now in terra incognito. June 2015 has got only three animals on it so far: the nyala, the kudu, and the waterbuck. And the kudu so far is winning. Sorry about that, Phil. Try and catch these birds. Did you see them, Phil? 2 chin-spot batises. Just see if we can get them. I think it'll be very difficult to find them. They're in this knobthorn tree just above us here. Go forward a little bit. Also on the antelope pole, making an appearance, is the sable, the gerinook, which is an extremely long neck. It looks like a sort of impala with an elongated neck. They live in East Africa. I know those batises, I'm afraid, are invisible. And also a sable. And the sable I quite like as well, I must say. The Jerry Nook to me looks a little odd. We've also had an eland. Eland, quite an impressive animal. I'm not sure it's the most elegant I've ever seen. Question about do we have eland at Djuma? The answer is no, not at the moment. They've probably been seen in the Sabi sands maybe twice in the last 20 years. You must remember, as I've mentioned a few times in relation to other animals, what happens is that when this area was sort of bought out and parceled out by private landowners, everybody started to put water in. So before, when an area like this in the summertime probably wouldn't have had that much game, it would have migrated north to a place like the Timbavati, where the perennial rivers are, not the perennial, the annual rivers are, and come back down here for the winter to the Sand River where the perennial rivers are. Then we probably would have had more sable, more in the way of eland, and the more rare antelope. In fact, in some areas of the Kruger Park, roan, which are the most rare antelope we get here at the moment, were shot for rations because they were so plentiful. But now, as soon as in our typical sort of Western way of doing things, we started chopping the land up, and everybody had to have his own water hole because we felt that water was the most attractive things to animals. And what that did was to increase the number of impala hugely, increase the number of zebra hugely, and it concentrated the lions, the main apex predator, around the water sources, which meant that non-water dependent species like sable and roan and eland and even wildebeest to a certain extent, their numbers started to be decimated because there was no way that they could get away from the water. And if they couldn't get away from the water, they couldn't get away from the lions. And so the lions used to pluck off their calves very quickly, and so the populations started to drop. And that's why we don't find huge numbers of eland and sable and roan and even reedbuck in areas like this anymore. That sort of philosophy of giving as much water as possible is starting to change, and so in time I'm hoping those species will come back. Right, now third on the list of fancy or favorite antelope is Nyala, and that is what my old friend Byron has found. So we're going to cross over to him, and those of you who've picked kudu and waterbuck or Jerry Nook can decide if you want to stick with your choice or not. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. And those of you who just joined us, you're with Byron and Andrew again. And I know James has just been asking everyone how or what their favorite antelope is, or most beautiful antelope. And we're with a big family of Inyala at the moment. And I hear that is a favorite for a lot of people. It's definitely one of my favorite in these areas. Really beautiful. Got quite a number of females here. There's a really young one with the females. It's difficult to see. It's quite hidden at the moment. And then there's a big dominant male with them at the back. They've just moved into the thicket a little bit, but let's just see. We may get another glimpse of them.
Is this a female with horns?
Oh, look at that. That's quite interesting. There's a young male. Now, this morning, and I'll just recap, but this morning we discussed the difference between the male and the females and the coloration and how different the two are. They almost look like they're different species. But the coloration of the females is that reddish brown with those very prominent white stripes, and the male, who hopefully we'll get a view of a little bit later, he's a very dark grey, but also got very prominent white stripes down the body, and quite hairy. He's got a thick coat and really large horns, which the females do not have. That little one that we saw now was a young male. When the males are young, they are the same color as the females. The older they get, they then begin to turn that dark grey color when they become more mature. So occasionally you may look quickly and think it's just a female, but if you see those little tips of the horns which we saw on that one that just walked through, you'll definitely know it's a male. Only the males have horns. So it's interesting how they go from that reddish brown color, they change all the way to that dark grey, which you can see. And look at that beautiful mane on his back, all the way down his back, that very, very prominent white mane. Really beautiful antelope. I'm going to just go forward a little bit. I think there might be a gap. Maybe we get to see them all come out into the open. They are hiding from us a little bit. The Inyala love moving through these thickets. They're browsers, so they feed on all the leaves of the trees. So these thick areas are ideal for them. There you can get a glimpse of the little one walking through there. Just a little bit of trivia for everyone. With antelope, you have the males are often known as bulls or rams, and the females are often known as cows or ewes. I'd like to know if any of you back home know, and without Google, what the Inyala male is known as and what the female is known as. And just a reminder, any questions or any comments you have, hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter, or alternatively email us with questions at wildearth.tv. Good afternoon to Roy, who just sent through a question. Roy and Julia actually have a similar question, or the same question. They would like to know, this morning when we were sitting at a waterhole, we were watching some Inyala too, but we found a few birds feeding around, coming down to drink at the waterhole. And Roy and Julia would like to know about a specific bird we saw. It had a red head, black collar, and quite a thick beak. If it's the one I'm thinking of, which we pointed out, it's called a black-collared barbet, Roy, so have a look in your books and see if you can find it. Black collared barbet, a beautiful red face, but a very prominent black stripe or bar around the throat and the neck, and also a bit of there's a bit of white in there too, but that thick beak, which will give it away. Very beautiful bird, and it's one of the birds which has got a very interesting call. I mentioned it a little bit this morning, that when they call, it's always a duet. They're always in pairs when they're calling. It sounds like one bird calling, but it happens so quickly, and it's a communication between the two birds, male and female, and they call together, and it sounds like one call, but always a duet. It appears as if these Inyala have moved a little bit further into the thicket. And it's a little tricky to see them now. I think what we're going to do is carry on a little bit and see what else we can find along this road. So I think we're getting quite a big response about my question with the cows and the bulls, or the rams and the ewes. Some of our viewers are saying stags. That's mostly related to deer. Now, just quickly, the difference between deer and antelope, and we don't have native deer in Africa. The deer they have got antlers which they shed annually, so they will lose their antlers annually and regrow them every year, especially during the mating season. And whereas the antelope in Africa, their horns, so they've got horns, their horns grow throughout their lifetime, and they do not lose them during the summer seasons or the winter seasons. Those horns will stay with them the whole time and constantly grow throughout their lifespan. Getting back to the Inyala and the other antelope species, the Inyala, and those of you who wrote in saying their male is a bull and the female is a ewe, you are correct. And it's quite a tricky one actually, and I'll tell you why. The Inyala is the not benchmark, it's the middle of the range of antelope in terms of size and where the name actually starts to change. So any antelope smaller than an Inyala, the males are known as rams and the females are known as ewes. Any antelope larger than an Inyala, the males are known as bulls and the females are known as cows. So the Inyala is the exception, where the male is the bull but the female is the ewe. Again, those of you who've just joined us or missed this morning drives, you are with Byron and Andrew this afternoon. I'm up there for a day or two, taking a few drives, and hopefully I'll be joining you for quite some time in the future. It's really an amazing experience being back in the Sabi Sands. I haven't been here, or the last time I was here was about January. So it's great to be back and see how the bush has changed. You know, we're in winter. It's a lot drier than the last time I was here. January is in the middle of summer for us. It's very lush and green. There's quite a high rainfall here. Really, really beautiful. But the winter is also very special. So just getting back to that question that I asked earlier, and those of you who got it right, well done to Crystal, Filio and Elaine. And Crystal even went as far as giving us the exact explanation which I gave to you. So well done. You obviously pay a lot of attention in your safaris. Birds at the top of the tree here. Oh, birds are always tricky. Let's see if Andrew can try get a glimpse of them. Hang on, they're moving towards the tree. Perhaps we can view them. It's just an interesting bird that I would like to show you. Flying off away from us. It was a green wood hoopoo, and let me just see. Flying away from us. Let's have a look here quickly. These birds are quite difficult to see. They're usually in groups, and they fly in small flocks or family groups, but they're just evading us at the moment. They're not willing to be filmed this afternoon. But I believe James might have a bird or two for you. So why don't you cross back to James, see what he's got and what he has to say.
Welcome back everyone to Jiga. Here we find ourselves at the northern end of the Arathusa airstrip, and we're looking at a lilac-breasted roller, one of the most fantastic looking beautiful birds that we get here in this area, and he's one of 4 types that are potentially found in the Kruger National Park. Together with his friend, the European roller, the purple roller, and the racket-tailed roller. In fact, even a broad-billed roller would be found here. So that's 5 kinds of them. But this is the most common and possibly the most beautiful one. He's an insect eater who will sit on a perch like that and dive down and catch grasshoppers largely. And they have, for such a beautiful bird, they have the most unattractive call. It's a kind of harsh quack, 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 quack. See, he's looking at me as I make it. It's almost as unattractive as the sound I've just made for you now. Bit like a sort of angry crow. So he's waiting to see what he can find in the grass below, and he'll leap down, murder it, eat it, and then fly back up to his little perch. He's called a roller, of course, because of the display flight that he makes during the breeding or mating season. Right, I'm afraid we've given up on those lions for now, because they seem to have crossed, they may have crossed back onto Juma. So we're going to head back that way and see what we can find by way of lion there. Here on Arathusa, there's been a lot of antelope, but not much else in the way of big and hairies. John in California, thank you for your question and welcome. You want to know if there have been any sightings of the Matimba males this afternoon or any other time or any other coalitions. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think they were seen this morning. We had a great sighting of one of them the other day. I've yet to see the one that the Twitterverse or emailverse has dubbed Ginger. So I haven't seen him, but his big black-maned brother I did see the other day, and that was just a spectacular sight. I know that there are a few coalitions in and out of the area at the moment, and so their reign is possibly under threat, but they're really big lions, so, and sort of in their prime, so it's going to be tough to unseat them. Some impala off to the right, doing not much, so we're going to carry on. Oh, that's quite a nice one, Phil. See the long-tailed shrike. We have what's called a magpie shrike now. It used to be the long-tailed shrike. It's a sort of communal nesting bird, so I don't know where his friends are. Perhaps he has irritated them to the extent that he's been excommunicated, but there he is on his own. He's a rather beautiful bird, especially against the backdrop of that deep blue winter sky that this front has brought in. It's unusually blue. It's probably pretty chilly up there. One hesitates to use the term azure, but that's what we have out here at the moment. It's a beautiful little bird, and I think he's probably just happily enjoying the last of the day's sun before he finds the rest of his flock and huddles up for the night on some branch deep. Ooh, he's hunting exactly in the same way as the roller did. But he's not coming back. That's the magpie shrike. I think they're called magpies because of their color, being pied, black and white, as opposed to because they behave like the magpies of northern climes. I don't think they're thieves like the magpies. Fork-tailed drongo. Fricky on Twitter. Sorry, I just stopped at there's a lovely sighting of a southern black tit, but it was right into the sun, so we won't get to see it. Fricky, thank you for your question. It's a good one. You want to know what is a gemsbok in English? To those of you in Europe or North America or Australia or Mongolia, Brazil, Chile, wherever you are, gemsbok is an Afrikaans word. It's one of South Africa's 11 official languages. And a gemsbok in English is an oryx. That's O-R-Y-X, an oryx. We have another kudu on the road, covered in ox pickers. We'll get a whole lot of kudu here. Pamela on Twitter, thank you for your question. I'm just going to whisper to you at the moment because I don't want to frighten these kudu off in the Sabi Sands. They are more a desert-adapted species. So they'll be found on the high veld, that's an oryx or gemsbok. They'll be a desert-adapted species, and so they'll be found mainly off in the Kalahari and on the high veld and into Namibia, where there are special adaptations. not actually going to go past the waterhole. We're just going to sort of, we're going to bypass it. We're not going to go through it. I'm going to have a quick look at this tree here. Phil, if you can focus in on this big tree. I shan't dally long here, but this is a brown ivory tree, or Berkemia discolor. And the interesting thing about it is that it is normally, I've only ever seen it growing on termite mounds. This is the first example of it that I found that, you know, where it isn't growing on an obvious mound. It's possible that the seed was dragged underground by a non-fungus grower, so a termite mound, a termite that doesn't build a mound, like an Odontotermes, for example, or a harvester termite, and maybe that's how this one has grown. But normally on big termite mounds, on bigger fungus-growing termite mounds. Beautiful trees, especially in the summer. And they're what we call semi-deciduous, so it will lose, you can see some of the trees losing its leaves, but some of it has fresh leaves already, so it's never completely without leaves. So it never goes sort of into the dormant phase that a lot of winter trees do. And that's quite an interesting adaptation, especially in winter. There's plenty of sun in winter. Leaves already, so it's never completely without leaves. So it never goes sort of into the dormant phase that a lot of winter trees do. And that's quite an interesting adaptation, especially. That might be my second favorite tree. Welcome back. Lovely to have your continual contributions. Thank you very much for them. You want to know what was the tree? I think you've probably just tuned in. Where have you been? That was a brown ivory tree, or Berkemia discolor. Normally grows on termite mounds. And then Raisa, you want to know what my favorite tree is? My favorite tree, Raisa, is the Lofeld milkberry, or Manilcara mochisa. And I'll show that to you now. It's kind of to me it represents a kind of tree where a spirit might live, or some form of African goblin or African hobbit, something like that. There's just got a sense of fairy tale around those trees. an uncomfortable speed. Phil is strapping himself in because I need to get close to the north as possible. So we're going to go across to Byron.
If we could spot anything, we've got a brief view of but they were in quite a thick area and they did run off from us. I understand James had you entertained with trees. That's a wonderful subject. And I think if you had to ask James a few questions about when I was training, and we spent a lot of time in the bush together and identifying trees. So as I mentioned before, if I get any of them wrong, it's my first port of call is to blame James. But yeah, I think my favorite trees would be the leadwoods, and there's one right here just next to us. Have a look there. A big old dead leadwood, and they're a fascinating tree. They really are. The wonderful thing with the leadwoods is that they, even after they've died, they can stay standing for anywhere between 50 and 100 years. They are very, very hardy tree, very, very strong, solid wood. Beautiful, beautiful shape. There's nothing better than having a leadwood with the branches standing out bare, and a sunset behind it. Really, really is incredible. You see that very distinct bark, very hard. There's no bark which peels off. Oh, and there's a little squirrel sunning himself, possibly trying to get last bit of warmth from the sunlight before going into the tree to sleep for the night. It's amazing what you see when you stop and you look at something as plain as a dead tree. A lot of people would drive past not to appreciate or notice something, and have a look at that beautiful squirrel sunning himself. And we're not very far. Again, it's been quite a warm afternoon, and I'm hoping that when we get to the waterhole we could have some action, perhaps some animals around there. That we can chat about. Let's carry on. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, if you've just joined us and you'd like to find anything out or comment, if you're on Twitter, just hashtag Safari Live. Alternatively, if you'd like to email us, just do so at questions@wildearth.tv. Here we go, we're approaching the waterhole now. Just going to keep a lookout, see if there's anything happening here. Often it's a good idea to scan the trees leading up to a waterhole or around a waterhole, just in the shade. Perhaps there's a predator lying down, resting. Let me have a look. Oh, we've got a hippo. Go. Look at that. I know yesterday, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Brent or Scott who came through here, but there were in fact 2 hippo in this waterhole. I only see 1 at the moment. Hippo do have the ability to cover quite a large distance when they're moving around in the evenings. Generally, hippo behavior is to stay in the water during the day. They don't like to be out exposed in the sun very much, and then they'll wallow in the mud and lay around in the mud for quite some time, or the water hole, sorry, not the mud. Have a look. Oh, he's displaying for us. Wonderful. And he gave a little bit of a snort at the end. It's always wonderful to see these yawning hippo opening their mouths. They've got the ability to open their mouths almost to 160, 170 degrees, which is incredible to open their mouths that wide. As I was saying, they're generally creatures of habit. They spend their day during the day in the water, and then in the evenings they'll leave, walk out of the water holes and go off and feed. Now, hippo are grazers, so they feed on a lot of grass, mainly grass. They don't eat. They are strict herbivores. However, I have seen hippo occasionally feeding on meat, so any animal that's died in the waterhole, or a crocodile or something has killed and it's found its way in the waterhole, then they may go and feed on that. It's possibly purely because of a nutrient deficiency, that they need extra nutrients and they need a bit of the protein, but generally they are herbivores and they feed on grass. So they'll go off, feed in the evenings, and graze quite a large amount of vegetation and then return back to the water holes again. In winter, however, because the mornings and the days are a lot cooler, they may spend some time out of the water basking in the sun just to warm up a little bit, and they'll return back to the water again. But it's not uncommon to see a hippo out of the water in winter. And getting back to where that other one went, perhaps it went off feeding in the evenings or last night, and then just decided to go to another water hole. Perhaps it had come from another water hole. I understand that for the last week or 2, this has been the only hippo here. So perhaps the other one wandered a little bit too far, found this water hole and thought it'd spend the night here, and then or the day rather, yesterday, and then decided last night that it would return back to wherever it came from. And good afternoon, Russell, all the way from Texas. And Russell had an interesting question, one that makes quite a bit of sense. Russell wanted to know why lions don't live close to water holes. And that's quite an interesting question. You would think being close to a water hole is very clever. They could just wait, hang around for any antelope to come down and drink, and possibly try and prey on them then. Russell, one of the reasons is, lions have to cover quite a large territory to, firstly, to keep out other lions, so they constantly move around. They don't spend a lot of time in one specific spot. They've got to patrol their territory, keep any competition or other lions out of their territory. And the other thing is, to hunt, they've got to go and look for food. Being at a water hole, and we saw this morning actually, some inyala came to drink, we had zebra drinking. All those animals are very, very nervous when they come to a water hole, and very careful. They are so alert of what's going on around them. So it wouldn't necessarily just be easy for them to come and hunt, or for the lions to hunt at a waterhole. As you can see around the waterhole, if Andrew scans a little bit, you can just see it is quite open. So the lions would lose the element of surprise, for one thing. And lions are ambush predators. They really need to stalk up close to hunt any potential prey. So an area like this, even though animals do come down and drink, it's very open, and they could possibly spot the lions before the lions have an opportunity to sneak up close enough. So the animals, whatever it may be, whether it's zebra or any antelope, all those animals are very quick and very agile, so they could easily run away from the lions before the lions had a chance. I hope that answers your question, but I think that's possibly one of the main reasons, is that it's a little bit too open for them, and they do have to patrol territories and keep out competition. So it's not always easy to just hunt right next to a waterhole. Andrew just scanned a little bit around the area for you there, and you saw this beautiful tree just in front of us. And I know James was asking you about favorite trees, and I'd like to know if any of you know what tree this is. It's got a very distinct stem. Getting another big yawn from the hippo, a little bit of a thrashing around in the water. They'll often do that. It's just a display. They tend to do that quite often in the afternoons, getting a bit active. They've been resting for most of the day, showing us this is his territory. We mustn't go into the water. So a lot of it's got to do with warning and just a territorial display. Good afternoon, Jim, all the way from Australia. Jim has an interesting question about the hornbills in this area, or this part of the game reserve which we are in. What species are found here, and if we have the silvery-cheeked hornbill. So Jim, in this area we have got the red-billed hornbill, the yellow-billed hornbill, the grey hornbill, and the ground hornbill. The ground hornbill is that really large one which often walk in families, in groups. They walk along the ground, foraging for food and trying to flush out any reptiles or insects that they might feed on. Those very big, thick bills or beaks and very red faces. They are very rare, and you don't see them very often in this area. The other species, the red-billed, the yellow-billed, and the grey hornbill are seen very, very often around here.
We need a link. We need a link to James, quick.
What I'd like to do is possibly just see what James is getting up to. I think he might be or have some interesting news for you. What we're going to do is quickly cross back. Just want to have a look if we can't find something else around this waterhole so long. So go and see what James is up to, and we'll...
Welcome back, everybody. We've got a pack of 5 wild dogs here. Just stand by 1 second. Just fantastic to see. The most endangered, second most endangered carnivore in Africa, and certainly one of my favorite animals. I'm so excited to see them. having a drink, probably been on the move for the last little while, or just getting on the move now and will be on the hunt looking for something. I probably tore Phil's various ligaments in Phil's body as I sped to get here at 150 miles an hour. It's just such a privilege to be here with them. And as I'm sure you know, if they start to hunt now, then there is going to be great excitement.
Just try not to move too much.
Okay, sorry. I'm moving with great excitement. The cameraman's shouting at me now. So a beautiful pack of 5. I'm just going to try and find my binoculars to see if I can find the alpha female who should be about to give birth. There she is. Look there, Phil, the darkest one there off to that side there. The one behind the one leading away, Phil, if you can get her. She's either lactating or about to start lactating. She's definitely heavily pregnant or may have given birth. I can't tell from here. Right, we're going to move now. They're running now. They're running now. Hold on, Phil. Okay, now they won't. We've got old Brent there in front of us, so he'll help us stay with them while taking 7,000 photographs. I can hear his lens going off from here. Hello, Brent. Joy and rapture unforeseen. For now the dogs are being seen. And the smell of them is unbelievable. It's the best way to track them. They smell just like a dirty domestic dog. Yeah, I think she's about to give birth. She still looks very heavy in the belly. That's her running off there in picture now. They definitely decided they're hunting something. I'm going to follow on the road. Yeah, they're splitting now. There's the one, Phil, we can see very nice view there of the female who's about to give birth, I think, if they haven't denned. We have to stay right awake here, because if they decide to hunt something, they will go at a hell of a speed. Only 350 to 400 left in the whole Kruger Park. Here's a beautiful one next to us. Look at that. Oh, that's just magnificent. Isn't he lovely? So we're just going to wait with this one here. They're listening. You can see their ears twitching from side to side. They'll be sniffing. And this one is now going to the toilet, of course. Petra on Twitter, thank you for your question. You want to know why wild dogs smell so bad. I don't think they smell bad at all. They just smell like wild dogs. I'm just trying to give you a sense of what they smell like. So if you think of a wet Labrador, that's around about the smell you've got. I suppose it would be bad if they were curled up on the bed next to you, but as they aren't, I find the smell quite pleasant. They're just searching through the woodland here for any signs of possible prey, most likely impala. That's the most frequently savaged prey by these great hunters. Right, so they're on the move. I'm not going to get too close to them because they do need to listen for what they're going to chase. Those ears, you can see how huge they are, just like the kudu. They're starting to move a bit now. They're a really important part of their defense and their attack. Those radar-like ears, they're like two great big satellite dishes on the front of the head. Send Brent through following the others, and we'll follow this one here. This is just so special. So watch your head, take your dentures out. Aerial here. Well done, good job. Phil's on fire, thankfully. We've got two of them here. And definitely on the chase for something. I don't think they're okay, now they're running. Now they're moving. Slow down again. Sorry about the speed with which we're having to drive, but we'll lose them in a ticky if we don't keep going. Losing pieces of car. Never mind. Buy another one. In front of us. I'm not sure if you can see them. There they are. They're all there. Charlie on Twitter, thank you for your question. It's a very good one. You want to know, I'm not going to excuse my lack of eye contact with you as I try and follow them. You want to know how big an animal, what's the sort of prey limit size for a pack of 5. Sort of a adult cow is probably the limit of what they'd go for. That would also be quite big. It would most likely be a ram impala, but it is theoretically possible for them to take a kudu cow. I'm not sure if you can get a sense of the incredible thrashing that's going on through the bush here. They are moving in front of us. I hope you can see them there. I can see them. Just don't want to get too close. But we haven't seen any impala or anything like that. And unlike with the cats, you know, the cats we are even more careful with because they rely on stalking. These dogs don't rely on any form of stealth at all. If they find something, of course, is an animal that will chase something down. Basically, it can't run. So with the cats on the hunt, we'd be a lot more circumspect about the amount of vegetation we were prepared to smash. Not so much here. I keep losing my ears. Okay. Sorry about that. We keep going. There they are. Still see them in front of us there. Just about. Lost them now. You got them? Yeah, Phil's got them. There we go. It's quite a full body workout here on the steering wheel. There we go. The whole pack is now, we've crossed through the block and they're onto another road now. Mercifully. Whether they'll turn onto it or hair down through the drainage line, I'm not sure. So they can smell something there. Not sure what it is. I suspect that's the alpha male that's just walked right out of picture. He's the one who's been leading them. He will lead the hunt with the alpha female, who's obviously the pregnant one. Oh, they are just such special animals. Okay, here we go. Listening. Look at their ears. That's the alpha. And he'll contact call. He'll call him if he finds something in there. Go in there. I'm not going to guarantee I can follow them, but I will try. If there's a way, I will find it. Here comes the alpha. He's coming back out of the drainage line. I wish you could smell them. It's such a distinctive smell, and you can, it'll linger for a few minutes after they've left an area. I'm not sure that I can get through there. Here's the alpha female. We'll stick with her for now. There's quite a big drainage line through here. There we go. There's the other one there, Phil. There's another one just through there. That's it. He's gone now into the drainage line. Now, whether we can get this Land Rover down there or not, I'm not sure. Peggy in Montana, thank you for your question. You want to know if having the pregnant alpha female doesn't slow the pack down. Probably very slightly, but what you need to remember is that carnivores all have a very short gestation, mainly because what they want to be able to do, I'm not going to be able to get through here, mainly because, I'll get back to you now, Peggy. Okay, we're going to speed round there. Where are you guys going to go? Okay. Right. Scott and Brent say there's no way we're going to get a vehicle through there. I'm going to speed around the other way, see what we can see. I'm going to go past these chaps here. Sorry, Jachilem, go. Peggy, so carnivores have very short gestation periods, and that's because they can't afford the hunt. So, while if you think of a human being at 9 months pregnant, that's obviously hopeless if you want to, if you're intending to do some form of ardent physical exercise. It's not the same for the carnivores. For the herbivores, although they carry babies for a lot longer. Watch out, fellow. I'm saying that to an impala. See if they don't come up here.
Hi everyone, how exciting was that? James with the wild dog. That is incredible, that really is fantastic and so lucky. You know, wild dogs cover huge distances very, very quickly. And it sounds like they just about run through the whole property, the whole of Juneau, just in one quick afternoon. That is very exciting stuff. I'm so glad you all got to see that. Since that's all been gone, we left the water hole and we've been looking for leopard around a drainage line, just trying to see if we get any sign of any leopards. Often they like to lie down in the drainage during the course of the day when it's hot and rest. Sounds like there may be a bit of a problem with James's signal at the moment with the dogs while they are running around with the wild dogs, but I think we've got picture back with James, so why don't you cross over back to James and see how it's going. Hopefully you get another view of those wild dog and we'll continue our search.
Hi everybody, sorry we lost you there. I'm afraid we had to come quite a long way to try and find them again, and I haven't had any luck as yet. I'm just going to switch off and listen. It's very important to look behind you, because they might pop out there. But they haven't yet. We're heading in this general direction. I'm just going to see if I can get hold of Brent or Scott. Brent or Scott, come in. Confirm nothing your side. Okay, copy, thanks. All right, we've got all the bases behind us covered, so I'm going to go a little bit forward and turn down the next road I can find. The thing is with these dogs, they're not like lions, which will just stop, lie down and do nothing for the next 18 hours. I mean, they will move all the time. So they could be anywhere by now. Here is a road, and now this is where that smell is so important, because if they've come through here and we're awake, we will definitely smell them. sharp kudu. Charlie on Twitter, you asked another great question. Thank you for it. You want to know, surely if wild dogs smell so strongly that even humans can smell them, is that not a disadvantage when they're hunting? Charlie, it probably is a slight disadvantage, but like I said, their hunting strategy, which is, and they're the most successful hunters out here, about a 70% hit rate. Their hunting strategy is not one of surprise and stealth. It's one of just chase the animal down till it drops dead. And so they're not really that concerned if other animals smell them or not. But once they've got sight of a prey species, they've got a 70% chance of killing them. It's going to stop again for a second. They were heading straight towards this area. The wind is rustling, so it's a little difficult to hear. John on Twitter showing some concern for Phil. Thank you very much for that. Phil is much appreciates your concern. The fact that the camera is still showing picture as opposed to the sky indicates that we still have him with us, which is a great plus, because my camera work is not the most impressive, and it's even worse when I'm driving. No, negative. I've come down the next road. Just trying to coordinate where we're going. I can't smell anything. We're not going to go too much further down here. Before we go back up, just see that they haven't come out to the north. Tony in Ireland, you'd like to know, thank you for your question, you'd like to know how far will wild dogs travel in a day? Tony, they can travel quite a distance. Their home range is about 450 square kilometers, which is obviously enormous. But in a day, they're possibly up to 15 kilometers. They can travel much further if they have to, but if there's prey in an area, they won't necessarily move that far. So they'll kill and then move on. But I'd say on average, probably 15 to 25 kilometers. There's nothing on Hyena Road so far. We're going to turn around and come back up the road. So I haven't seen anything. We've come quite a long way south down this road. And they can't smell or see them. The this stage of the game. The sun is starting to set, which is okay for them, and especially they will, I mean, if it does go dark, what they'll do is lie down, and then as the moon comes up, because it's almost full still, they'll hunt under the light of the full moon. But they must have light to hunt. They're unlike the cats. Alright, we're going to turn around here, go back up. Try not to lose Phil. Rather crucial part of this operation. I'm afraid we've got to the point of guesswork now, because they could have gone in any direction. They might come across those hapless kudu just now. Quite exciting. And even if we don't see them again, we've had a wonderful sighting and a glorious sunset awaits us. On Twitter, as far as we can make out, this is your first interaction with us, and so thank you very much and welcome. If it is, if it isn't, we're sorry we're so negligent in our remembrance. But this is, you wanted to know, when she gives birth, will they stay in one place? The answer is no, they won't. They'll put the pups in a termite mound, and she will then, the mother will nurse them for a while, but she will soon be back out on the hunt. Sorry, just hold on, Teresa. Go ahead. Okay, copy. Okay, we've got them up front. Confirm you have the visual. Track that's headed up north. Teresa, they quite possibly are looking for a den site now, given how pregnant she is. Out of the way, Hornbill. And sorry, I'm with 150 different things in my ear at the moment. Copy, thanks. Scott and Brent are following them. Teresa, so they won't stay in one place, no. They will stay in one den for about 10 days maybe, and then move the pups because they start to smell quite bad. They are going to cross north, I think, so I'm going to drive at a hell of a speed. But she will be on the hunt almost immediately after giving birth. We're going to go and see what Byron's doing just now, not just yet. We might just, the dogs are just up ahead. Out of the way, bird. Right, they're just up ahead. We may have lost them, but I'm just going to make sure. Some vehicles up ahead. Phil's about to be bucked off. There they are in front of us. Where? I can't see them. I've got frantic pointing. Can you see them?
Yeah, I saw them riding straight through the 10 degrees to where you are.
Okay, so they've unfortunately crossed over the boundary. I'm going to move slowly down this road here, but unfortunately we can't follow them from here because they've gone north over our boundary. It was just fantastic. I feel quite breathless with joy at that sighting. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm sorry if the jerking around in the vehicle made you a little bit seasick. You got them there? Okay. Phil's got them. Phil reckons he has them in there. Yeah, I think they've headed off north, I'm afraid. What a fantastic sighting that was. I was feeling quite cold before that. Now I'm warm. Phew. How was that, Phil?
I don't need a personal trainer now.
Phil will need some advanced physio and chirotherapy after this. Let's go up and look at the sunset and ask, apparently there's some questions. We'll go up and park and look at the sunset and I'll tell you about everything I know. Marianne, thank you very much for your question. We're just going to park here and watch as the sun starts to sink. You want to know about the den site. Is it similar to a hyena's den site? The answer is it's exactly the same. They will look for an old aardvark or aardvark or antbear burrow, clean it out of any recalcitrant monitor lizards or snakes, and then she will give birth in a big termite mound hole, exactly like a hyena would. So I'm just catching my breath now as the sun starts to sink and the earth takes a breather as well. Pamela, you'd like to know how many pups wild dogs will normally have. Thank you very much for your question. Up to 12. But very seldom will all of them survive. So, I mean, if they have a litter of 12 or 13 sometimes, it's possible that they would survive if those 5 adults are particularly good hunters, but normally the attrition rate is fairly severe. Probably 20 to 40% of them will survive. If you can hear the wind rustling through the leaves now. We're heading for a fairly chilly night, I think, but I'm very warmed inside by that last sighting. Debbie on Twitter, great question. At what age will wild dog pups be able to keep up with a pack, not a pride? The answer is probably at about 6 weeks they'll start to move with the, they'll no, not 6 weeks, sorry, 6 months. They'll be fully fledged hunters, but they'll start to move with the pack, I think, around 3 months. As soon as they're sort of starting to wean. Ginny and Christy, you ask a very good question, thank you. You want to know, surely they already have a den, given how pregnant she is. No, Ginny, they don't. They'll find it just before she gives birth. And Brent made a very good point. He reckons that they're actually looking for a den right now. And I think that's very, very likely. Sorry, I've just got a radio message coming through. It's got nothing to do with the dogs, so we won't worry about that. So what will happen is now they will search for a den site, and we're hoping, of course, that it will be on Djuma. But because Djuma is not an enormous property, the chances are quite small. But it would be really special if they did. So I think Brent is probably correct when he says that they're looking for a den site as we speak. So it feels to me like the whole earth around me now is starting to sigh as the day ends. You hear the rustling in the leaves. The doves calling for the last time. Julie in Milwaukee, thank you for your question. You want to know if the dogs will communicate with each other like wolves and sort of vocally. And the answer is yes, they do. They chatter, and they make a sort of almost bird-like chattering noise. And they also bark. They make a sort of hooting, barking, bird-like chattering noise. And they also bark. They make a sort of hooting, barking noise when they're threatened. And they don't howl like wolves, but they make a sort of hoot when they're on the hunt and they want to communicate with the other members of the pack if they've been separated. And like I say, the dogs will now go down. They won't move after dark because their eyesight is not wonderful after dark. They'll find a comfortable place to lie. Jimmerlin in Oklahoma, thank you for your question. I'm just trying to understand if I'm getting you correctly here. You want to know if the diet is the same between dogs and lions, and therefore, why do they have similar smells, or why don't they have similar smells? The diet is very similar, except that the dogs will probably consume more of a carcass than the lions will. The lions tend to stick to the meaty parts and the bones, but the dogs will, and some skin, but the dogs will, if they catch a steenbok, they will devour just about every single piece of it. That's not to say the lions won't. In terms of smell, their dung does smell different, but I don't know why that is. It's probably got to do with the digestive bacteria and that sort of thing. But the smell of the is definitely very different. I couldn't tell you why, I'm afraid. Glorious sunset, that. It's always just slightly clearer and brighter when the air is as crisply cold as this. So for us, it's quite chilly now. For North America, it's balmy. You can hear the drongos calling behind us. Make that call in the late evening. So while Phil and I, while Phil sort of recovers from the major injury given to his back, we're going to cross over to Byron and see what he's found, and we'll catch up with you a bit later.
Hello everyone, welcome back. How amazing was that wild dog sighting? It's incredible. I'm so happy you all got to see that. It's definitely one of the most fascinating predators we get in this area, and most exciting. I mean, the way they can just cover huge distances in such a short period of time, and as you saw, it's not easy to stay with them. But I'm glad you got to see them and spend some time with James, and I'm sure he got through most of your questions regarding the wild dog and how they move around and what they get up to. We are on our way towards the hyena, which we were at this morning. We were just curious because there was an adult there. We're not sure if the cubs are around, but there was an adult there this morning. So we'd like to go and double check, make sure there isn't any activity around there. And I mean, we're still not entirely sure where that leopard moved off to this morning. So we're going to go have a look around that area and just see if we have any luck. We have such an amazing sunset this evening. Really beautiful colors. Hello, Cecilia. Cecilia's just asked quite an interesting question. She's asked me what one of my scariest moments in the bush has been. I think off the top of my head, the first answer would definitely be meeting James. He's quite an intimidating individual. No, I'm just kidding. Cecilia, fortunately, I haven't had many hair-raising experiences. I've been fortunate enough to view a lot of animals, and I've been lucky with their behavior, and I've judged it fairly correctly on most times. But on one occasion, I was by myself walking through the bush. I was tracking something, and I'd been charged by an elephant. Now that for me, and I mentioned this morning, elephants are one of my favorite animals, but that was definitely a hair-raising experience, and it was something that's definitely stuck with me. And I was definitely nervous and quite scared at the time, but in my mind, and I'm not one to overthink things too much, but I do believe that the elephant could have hurt me if he wanted to. I don't think he did want to, and he actually stopped the charge. He must be about 5 meters from me, which is incredibly close for a 5 to 6 ton bull elephant. And he stopped. There was a lot of dust, bit of trumpeting, and he turned and he moved off. And as he moved off, I then quickly made my way out of the area and away from him. but just one charge. I think he had been irritated previously in the day, and that's perhaps what triggered it. And we literally bumped into each other. It wasn't any instigating or anything like that, but that was quite a scary experience. But again, you know, I always believe that animals are not out there to hurt us. We purely here to view them in their natural habitat and try and watch how they behave and act. And if we give them the space and the courtesy, which I think they all deserve, they generally leave us alone. And I think that's one of the best of avoiding any situation. Temperature has dropped quite a bit this evening on our sunset safari. As the sun has dropped, the temperature has gone down with it, and both myself and Andrew have got our jackets on already. It's not too bad. It was definitely much colder this morning. Wonderful time of the day. There's a lot of birds giving their final calls before they head off to sleep, so there's a lot of activity, a lot of movement. Kind of, if you glance through the bush, you'll see the few birds flying off. You hear francolins calling. There's always something going on. Just noticed what a beautiful view we have from this particular point. We're not far from that hyena den, but it's always wonderful to stop and just take in some of the natural landscape and the views which we are fortunate to have in this area. And I mean, as far as you can see, just trees, and it's incredible. You know, there's a saying that one of my friends used to say, which stuck with me quite a bit. And if you look out there, we don't really know what's going on. And around us, at the moment, there's nothing going on. But at the same time, everything is going on. Everything is happening, because we don't know what's going on out there. We wild dogs run through the property very quickly. We had some zebra drinking a bit earlier. We had buffalo, warthog, and that's just what we saw. But we don't know what's going on in these thicker areas and beyond the horizon, which I find so fascinating. And the other really incredible thing, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, is we are in the middle of Africa, in the greater Kruger National Park, and yet we are able to bring you this live. Everything we're seeing, you are seeing as we see it, and it's just such an amazing experience. You know, for those of you who haven't been on this morning or only joined us now, my name's Byron. I've arrived today just doing my first and second drive, and it's been such a great experience. And again, just appreciating being back here. We've been very lucky this morning with the leopard, but hopefully our luck continues. James was lucky this afternoon with the wild dog, and we're heading towards a hyena den now, just to see if there's any activity around there, and if there are potential cubs around. It's often a nice time of the day, just as it's starting to get dark, the sun set. Excuse me. The sun is set, and it's a nice time to have a look. have a look at this. We've just seen, the warthog just run out the burrow. These were warthog that this morning, while this hyena was lying 30 meters from the hole. These warthog had returned to this burrow, or this den, and they were down the hole. So this just kind of makes me think and realize that there's possibly no cubs in this den at the moment. I think those hyenas have moved off with the cubs, and that adult that we saw here today was probably just resting in this area, probably knows the den site quite well, and that's possibly why it was here. Because on this morning when we got here, the adult female head was out, and the adult female warthog, her head was out. The hyena was lying down, and we sat here for a short while, but the warthog were waking up, getting ready to head out, and she came out, and the 3 young piglets followed her, and they ran off. Fortunately for them, they ran away from the den in that direction, in a northerly direction, and then where the hyena was laying down, just beyond, that's where the leopard popped up this morning. So it would have been interesting if the piglets and the mother ran towards the leopard, because leopard do enjoy hunting warthog, and especially a piglet running past at the back of the group. And my understanding is Tingana, the leopard which we saw this morning, and leopards can be creatures of habit at times. They're not, again, we can't always guarantee their behavior, but occasionally they pick up behavior which forms a pattern. Now Tingana apparently likes to sit outside warthog burrows and aardvark burrows, possibly waiting for a warthog or an aardvark to run out, and I've seen other leopard do that before. They can pick up on the scent of the animals inside the burrow, so they'll sit. They're incredibly patient animals, and what they'll do is they'll sit down and wait for any potential prey to come out or return back to the burrow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep very quiet now. It looks like the warthog are returning back to the burrow. So let's just sit quietly a little bit and have a look to see if they go back down. Can just see the mother in front leading the piglets back. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to just move a little bit further back, just to give the warthog a little bit more space. Perhaps she'll feel comfortable. I'm going to start the vehicle. She may move off a little bit, but I do think she's going to come back. So just let me give her a little bit more space. Back off slowly. Or hang on a second. Coming closer. Okay, let's rather wait. I don't want to disturb her. How wonderful is this? Female's very wary, just watching us. Wants to make sure we're no threat. Yeah, she's moved off a little bit. I'm going to give them a little bit more space quickly. Let me just move the vehicle. Let's just wait here for a second. Given them quite a bit of space, and let's wait here and see if they relax a bit more. If not, I'll possibly just move off so that they can head back down into the burrow. But she was fairly relaxed. She just wanted to make sure we weren't a threat. I'm certain they are going to head back to the burrow shortly. I understand a lot of you are hoping that we've got the same luck we had this morning and a leopard pops out, possibly tries to catch one of these warthog. That would be very lucky, and but you never know what's going to happen. Here we go, slowly coming back. Good evening and hello to Halal. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Halal's question was, she would like to know how heavy can warthog get. Now, some of the big boars, the big males, can get up to between 80 and 110 kilograms. A really big boar, now, and that would be very big, is about 110 kilograms. Or, some of those weights are records. You know, if you read most books, they'll give a range for the weight of a big male or big female, but big warthog can get up to around that weight of 180, 100 or 100 kilograms. So that's roughly around 200 pounds, somewhere around there, roughly, maybe a bit more, 220, 230 pounds, which is a huge animal. And that's why even leopard and lions think twice before they hunt some of these big warthog, because they're armed with incredibly sharp tusks and they're very quick, very powerful, especially one that size. You've got to be very careful if you're hunting them. They're slowly heading back. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. There we go. And have a look, if you watch them going down, you You may see them reversing in. Yeah, have a look at that. And now that is typical warthog behavior for entering a burrow. They go in backwards. The reason for that is if they feel threatened or there's danger that comes into the front or the entrance of the burrow, they can always use their tusks to defend themselves, and they can sprint out of the hole and get away very quickly. So have a look at that. There we go. On their knees and back into the hole. How beautiful is that? Look at that, beautiful, going down into the burrow. This is really very, very special, and I'm so glad we're getting to view them like this. We just received a question from Ashley on Twitter. The gestation period of a warthog. It's about 170 days, Ashley. So that's the general gestation period of a warthog. And then some of you may be thinking that there are only 2 piglets at the moment. This morning they ran out very quickly, and I said there's possibly 2 or 3 piglets. I didn't actually see properly that if there were 3 or if there were 2, so I may have got it wrong this morning by saying 2 or 3, but there's just the 2 that are with her, and I think it was just the 2 that were here earlier. They did just run out very quickly, and I was scanning the area to see if something else had chased them, just to make sure, but my counting is occasionally incorrect. I apologize, but it's just the female with the 2 piglets at the moment. But this is a fascinating sighting. I don't think I've ever seen warthog return to a burrow in the evenings to go down. You can see she's still a little wary, but she's definitely relaxed a lot more, and you see those sharp tusks at the entrance just in case anything comes up, making sure there's no danger, and then she'll probably head down. We've received a question on Twitter from Happy Cub. Good evening. Just at what age do the litter or the piglets leave the adult? It's an interesting question. You know, often what happens with warthog is the family tend to stay together. Males, when they reach maturity, quite a few years later, will possibly move off and go look for other females and then become independent. But a lot of the piglets and the females tend to stay within the family. And I've got a question for all the viewers. Does anyone know what a family or a group of warthog are known as? Always these collective nouns are fascinating, and the warthog is quite an interesting one. Good evening, Kari. Kari is 15 years old, all the way from Costa Rica, and she's just sent through an interesting question, asking me, how would a warthog react if we were on foot and walking and bumped into a warthog? And that's a very interesting question. Firstly, talk about what would happen if you had to walk in front of that hole with that female, or that burrow with that female inside. And Kari, it would generally not be a very pleasant experience. What happens is, because they reverse or move backwards down into the burrow, if you had to walk, oh, there we go, there she goes down. If you had to walk in front of that burrow and surprise them or threaten them in any way, those warthog would come running out very quickly, and those tusks could do some serious damage, scraping your leg badly and occasionally breaking a leg if you're not careful. So that would not be advised. And one of the golden rules when you're walking in the bush or in a wilderness area is you never walk in front of a warthog burrow or an aardvark burrow, in case there are warthog or animals inside, and if they feel threatened, they will come shooting out. That can cause some damage. If you were walking through the bush, just on a bushwalk, and you came across some warthog, they would probably just move away, Kari. They won't stick around. They are quite skittish and nervous. You can see this female is still just a little bit wary and wants to make sure it's safe before she goes to sleep. But they would most likely run away from you. They are not very confrontational animals. Again, if you cause them to feel threatened, then they would run and charge you. So Sherry on Twitter and Elaine from Massachusetts answered my question, what a group or family of warthog are known as, and they've got it right. It is a sounder. First, the correct answers. So those of you who didn't know, it is a sounder of warthog. What a fantastic sighting. It really was incredible. Lovely to see these warthog go down into the burrow. Christine from North Carolina just sent through a question asking me a warthog burrow or a hyena den can be. It varies so much, Christine. It would be anywhere from a meter to 2 or 3 meters deep. Occasionally what could happen is these old termite mounds form such a wonderful home for these animals because they're easier to burrow into. There's a lot more or the ground is a lot looser inside, probably some open cavities so they can get quite deep, and occasionally burrows may go all the way through a termite mound and have a number of entrances. This one, however, I think has definitely just got the one entrance because the warthog have gone in, so she feels safe that nothing would come from the other side. So this entrance, or this burrow, is probably, I would say, between a meter and a half, pushing it 2 meters, because there have been hyenas in there, so I would say that's probably how deep it can go. And they also do maintenance on these burrows. They will clean it out a little bit more, possibly making it a little bit deeper, trying to keep it clean. Just remember, there are a lot of fleas and that which occur in these burrows once all these animals use them as homes, so that is also something to consider. This was really a special sighting and great to see. It just shows how patience pays off in the bush, and always works and works out for the better, just to wait and see what happens, and we get to see these animals in their natural habitat acting the way they would if we weren't here. I think what we're going to do is, why don't we see what James is up to. He's been driving around for a while, perhaps he has found something, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everybody, to Jiga. I've strapped Phil's body back together, which is quite pleasant. So as you can see, he's found us a spectacular view out west again over the mountains and the great setting African sun. I have been trying to take a photograph with my little camera, failing so far. I'm not skilled in those arts like Brent and Scott are, but I'm learning. We've had the most spectacular day, and the night drive has just sort of commenced, so we've got a little bit of time left, and we're going to carry on trying to find little bits and pieces that might be out at night. Civets perhaps, or genets, or chameleons. The chameleons tend to come out in the winter, which is quite nice, and perhaps a bush baby or two. Then of course there's always the hope of seeing a leopard, which is our favorite thing to see at night. It's certainly one of my favorite animals. I'm just judging. Somebody asked me on my first drive what my favorite animal was, and I wasn't really able to answer. But the speed at which my heart was beating during that wild dog chase is starting to make me think that I perhaps do have a slight leaning towards Lycaon pictus, the African painted wolf, or the wild dog. So I still feel sort of warm and fuzzy inside after that incredible sighting. Phil doesn't, of course, because he's deeply injured, but that's just how it goes. And we're going to carry on, try and spotlight a few nighttime animals and see what we can see. I'm going to give up on my photography for now. There's no need for you to experience my incompetence on the celluloid. All right, here we go. Oh, and I wanted to say, Chris on Twitter, you asked about dog smell and whether it was an evolutionary disadvantage, and it got me thinking. Charlie, sorry, not Chris, Charlie. You got me thinking about it, because I wasn't entirely satisfied with the answer I gave you. And I did a little bit of reading quickly, and although the book didn't say this exactly, what it did say is that they use their nose quite a lot to follow each other when they're hunting. And I suspect that's one of the reasons that they still have that smell. They move huge distances while they're hunting, and they spread out quite far from each other, and I think that smell that they have although it might alert prey to them, probably plays a major role in helping them to follow each other and outweighs the disadvantage of having the prey. So great question, and thanks for stimulating my mind. Right, spotlight is on. Let's see what we can see. I must tell you the temperature has dropped substantially. I'm wearing shorts, and not even the thick pelt of hair upon my legs is keeping them warm. So tomorrow morning I'm going to have to find some form of a long pant or blanket. I've just had a dreadfully update from the inimitable Nikki Austin, who says it's going to be 4 degrees tomorrow morning. In Fahrenheit, that is not much above 40. So I'm going to have to find some form of blanket, otherwise my legs will fall off. Not sure Brent or Scott are going to experience the Baltic conditions tomorrow morning with me. Often on windy nights, well, it's not windy, but there's certainly a bit of a cool breeze blowing through here at the moment. And what happens is that animals will go into thick. They'll congregate if they happen to be communal. If they're leopards, which are on their own, I feel quite sorry for them. But they'll tend to stick to the thicker bush and out of the wind. So they can't just put on an extra layer of clothing should the need arise. They do get thicker coats, of course, much like your dog does or a horse does, but you know, that sort of remains for the whole of the winter, and it doesn't grow in a day. Said I am checking in all the marula trees to see if there isn't a carcass hanging from a bough with the resting therein. Guaranteed of with the weather like it is a very clear and starry night. So we might have to light a fire outside, sit by it with a warming scotch. I believe Byron showed you a warthog going backwards into his burrow, which I think I've seen once or twice before. But what a wonderful thing to have seen. And especially as they seem to have evicted the hyenas from their home. I think it's rather amusing. Those warthog we saw the other morning when I was with Scott on camera, walking towards the den site, and we said to each other, you know, we wondered if they weren't going to walk into some form of a trap where the hyenas might take one of those little piglets. But it would seem the pugnacious nature of the pigs has pushed off the very large and sort of secondary predator of the area, which is quite impressive. And they found a new home. And it's a home much like the wild dogs will be looking for at the moment. Bumpy little road now called Ingwer Alley, which means Leopard Alley. I've yet to see a leopard on Ingwer Alley, so I'm not convinced that the name is not a misnomer of some sort. We'll try it anyway. Brent swears blind that he's seen hundreds of leopards on it. We're now on Ingwer Alley. May the herds of Ingwer tear out of the bush in front of us. Oh, there's some eyes there in the bush. I think we've got a bush baby. Well, there's an eye there in front. There we go. It's like a bush baby on the tree. If you get to, it's definitely there. Can you see it there? Beautiful. Let's see if we can't get a decent view of him. It. There we go. Jumping to the top now, Phil. A bit closer. There he is, jumped across there. Just gonna turn off here and see if we can't see him. He jumped from this knobthorn tree across to that terminalia, across to there. No. Sorry about that, everyone. Very unconfiding bush baby, that one. Small primate. People often think that they, or don't realize that they are related to us and to monkeys. Quite distantly related to us, although I do have some friends who are probably more closely related to them than they'd like to admit. And their little eyes apparently don't move. They were not little eyes, they were huge eyes. And apparently they don't move in the eye socket because they're so big. And so for the bush baby to look in either direction, it must turn its head. Hope to find, coming to the end of Ingwer Alley, which has proved to be as unproductive as usual, but it does help one's driving skills to drive on a road like this with one hand on the wheel and one on the spotlight. Poor old Phil's back's taking another hammering. Guys, we'll have to pour him a large scotch when we get home too. No, he says a beer rather. I'll give him a beer. The snifter of his choice. Heavens, the road seems to have disappeared. So, wherever you might find yourselves, be it in North America, where the day I'm sure is progressing, or in Northern Europe, where you're in a similar time to us, or in Australia, where you might even be in the early morning, early hours of tomorrow. It's been wonderful having you with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Phil and I had an incredible time with those wild dogs. That's Phil's first wild fighting here. So apart from the injuries he sustained, it was fantastic for him. And certainly for me, I've decided that they probably are my favorite animal. Here we are. Oh. Just getting an update on the antelope poll. Right, so we're going to, just in the last few minutes, we're going to read out the results of the antelope poll, starting with I seem to have lost community. Clipspringer coming in at last place. It's a little antelope that jumps around on the rocks. And then we have Sable, then Impala. Not sure why Sable did so badly. Steinbock or Steenbock next. And then Nyala female. It's a bit sexist, but never mind. Springbok. Coming in a tie with the Gerenuk, which I think is a bit unfair on the Springbok, our national animal. Right, then Tuk Tuk in 5th place, Kudu in 4th place. Sorry, there's furious counting going on. Nyala male in 4th place. Waddy in 5th. What was the next one? Waterbuck in 3rd place. Eland 2nd. And number 1. And then a great drum roll. In 1st position we have the Gemsbok or. So just before I leave you, I just want to have a quick listen to the last dying embers of the day. And thank you again for joining us. It's been great fun having you along. We had an incredible time with those dogs. And we will see you tomorrow. I'm going to hand you over to Byron, who's had a wonderful time too. And I must thank you all for making him feel so welcome. He's a good friend of mine. And so I'd have been very upset if you'd been nasty to him. So we're going to cross over to him, and he will say the goodbyes from us. So from Phil and I know that apparently I'm the scariest thing he's ever seen in the bush. It makes me feel quite good inside, I must say. So from Phil and I, thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the freezing morning. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, or whatever it is you're doing. Thanks.
Right, everyone, well, we're coming to an end of a beautiful sunset drive. A lot of excitement again with the wild dogs, with James, spending time with the warthog. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for all the support today. It was wonderful meeting you all and being able to answer some of your questions and experience this wonderful, wonderful area with you. It was very exciting for me. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. And always great to work with old friends again, Brent and Scott and James, and meet new friends, Phil and Andrew helping out on the cameras. And just a quick thank you again to Nikki and Eugene in the FC. Great help, and it was wonderful having them guide me along the way. And just to all the viewers again, thank you for all the help and the questions and the interaction. Please don't forget to feedback a lot of what you thought of the drives to the FC. Let us know what you think. This is again all about you and what you want and what you enjoy. So please let us know. It always makes it a lot easier for us to iron out a few things and find out what you want. Again, just a thank you. I am off tomorrow morning early. I've got to head back to the Kalahari, in fact, for a few days, taking some guests around there. So a very different type of safari experience. And then hopefully I will be back with you very soon. It'll be wonderful to join you again on Safari Live and take a few game drives with you. And we'll see. It's a beautiful evening tonight. I actually just heard some hyena calling in the distance. Probably a little too soft for you to hear back home. Thank you again, and we hope you enjoyed your day with us.